This is Government Matters with Mimi Geerges.
This is Government Matters, the only show covering the latest news trends and topics that matter to the business of government. I'm Mimi Geerges. Just days after Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, China started conducting live-fire missile drills around the contested territory. Yoon Soon is the director of the China program at the Stimson Center. Yoon, welcome to the program.
Hi, Mimi. Thank you for having me.
So China has been conducting these live-fire military drills around Taiwan as a result of Speaker Pelosi's visit. How significant is that?
Well, this is pretty significant in terms of the framing, that the Chinese have framed this as a forced Taiwan Strait crisis. It has, in fact, project the Chinese military presence and also military threat to the not only the Taiwanese territorial borders, but also pose a direct security threat to the Taiwan island. So the Chinese are trying to change the status quo. And unfortunately, this time, Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan has created the prequel or created paved the ground for the Chinese to act out.
Do you think this could draw Japan into conflict with China? Because I understand that some of their missiles landed in that area.
Yes, it has. And the Japanese government has protested against Beijing's military exercises and the fact that some of the Chinese missiles did land in Japanese exclusive economic zones. I think the Chinese reaction is that, well, China and Japan has maritime disputes between them. So therefore, the demarcation of the maritime borders have not really been performed, have not been completed. So the Chinese have used that excuse to conveniently cover up the fact that the Chinese missiles did land in the Japanese EEZ. And it also sends a warning signal to Japan that in a future potential Taiwan contingency, Japan should stand aside and should not get involved, especially not militarily.
So what does the U.S. gain from Speaker Pelosi's visit? What are the benefits here?
Well, there are a couple of benefits. I think first, of course, with Pelosi's visit, she is the highest ranking U.S. government officials to visit the island for more than 2 decades. And that by itself has shown U.S. strong support to Taiwan and the U.S. commitment to support Taiwan. And I think the second ramification or the second importance is that we know that China put on a very strong diplomatic campaign to deter her from going before the trip happened. And the reality is we cannot let China determine what U.S. will and will not do. So the fact that we need to have this trip in order to deny China the ability to interfere in our foreign policy decision-making is also not trivial.
So right now, China's president, Xi, is running for a 3rd term. Is that election causing more pressure on him to respond to Pelosi's visit?
Yes and no. First, it's not really an election, right? It's a consensus building process in the Chinese political term. And at this point, very few doubt that Xi Jinping will not be able to secure his 3rd term. So it's pretty much inked. The question is that to what extent Xi Jinping can also appoint his political confidants to the key positions within the government, whether he's going to have a landslide, overwhelming victory or not. So in that sense, Pelosi's visit to Taiwan is seen as an embarrassment and a humiliation for Xi, and he has to respond, and we have seen his response. But at the same time, I would say that the Chinese response this time is also well calculated in order not to get into a military escalation with the United States, which is why the Chinese punitive measures have primarily focused on the targeting of Taiwan rather than the United States.
So what response, if any, should the U.S. make to China's tests?
At this point, while the Chinese military exercises will be ending over the weekend, to my understanding, I think U.S. military has been monitoring the Chinese military activities and also to deter potential Chinese actions that would pose physical threats to, for example, Taiwan's territory. But at the same time, I think by the time these military exercises are over, what the U.S. will have to do is to look at the long-term impact of these military exercises and the precedent that is set, and the possibility, actually a pretty large potential, that China will repeat these military exercises because now they have a precedent. And to what extent the U.S. will correspondingly enhance its military assistance to Taiwan, I think that will be the most urgent question to be discussed.
Well, you mentioned long-term impact, and that was my question, is do you think that the backlash will have a lasting impact on U.S.-China relations, or does it just blow over and things just go back to how they were?
I think this is going to have an impact over U.S.-China relations because the Chinese have perceived the U.S. attempt to change the status quo over the Taiwan Strait for quite a while now. And now they are building up their case to say that, well, U.S. indeed has changed its policy. Therefore, China has also changed its policy. So I think for the Chinese, Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan has served as a convenient justification to pave the ground for future Chinese assertive and aggressive military activities in the Taiwan Strait. So I do think that will have a long-term impact.
So do you think it was a good idea, Yoon, for her to go? I mean, would you have encouraged her and recommended that she go to Taiwan?
I think on one hand, we certainly cannot let China tell us what to do or what not to do. But on the other hand, I think there has also been the debate as for whether this has been the best timing. Because there is a proposal that she could go as a Speaker of the House, but perhaps she could go after the midterm election, which would be much less provocative for the Chinese, and the Chinese reaction will also be mitigated by the timing. So I think the trip by itself is justified, but in terms of the timing, there are different opinions.
All right. Well, we will continue to watch this, Yoon, and see where this goes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mimi.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.